Right. We best get started before I get distracted by the football that's right in front of me.
Oh God, yeah. Come on then. How are we
This.
doing this?
What am I talking
Are we
about?
going one, two,
Retro.
three, remake zero, or are we doing
I
zero,
I have made
one?
my notes, my sad boy
Mm-hmm.
notes. I have made my sad boy notes in order of the game's releases.
Right. Okay.
So we start with the
Oh,
earliest and we
all right.
work our
Okay.
way to the latest.
That's
So
fine.
this is Retro Gak Attack talks Resident Evil, old school Resident Evil.
That's the one.
Only the old school here. I
Mm-hmm.
believe there are 5 games.
Yes, I had five in mind.
There are 5.
That's fine then.
I will mention remakes because it'd be daft not to mention them,
Mm-hmm.
but they can always come up at a later date
Okay.
because they are very modern. They are only, well, one of them came out
They're
the
like 20
same
years
year
old.
as the last one we're going to talk about.
They're like 20 years old.
Yeah, the first remake is 20 years old,
Yeah.
but the others are only 4 and 2.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I wasn't
Yeah,
considering those
but
two
I will
actually.
mention them because
Yeah.
for
I thought they're
comparisons.
more along the lines of like 6, 7,
Hmm.
so 7, 8. Sorry, 7, 8. That sort of stuff.
I'm hoping that
Oh,
by having my phone here, it's not gonna tamper with the microphone. If it does, I should hear it.
you can see the tick, 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 tick.
Oh, where are my notes? There it is. Look, I might be able to show you. I've still got all my notes from like Mario Kart and stuff,
Oh God.
and Golden Axe and Bomberman. Yeah, but
Yeah,
look,
I've been working. Oh, okay, okay.
that's Resident Evil.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh
You've got the
baby.
reflection of like the commentator
Yeah, do you want to watch the
on the
football?
TV.
This is this is how I do the streams of the football.
Look at him. Oh, there he is.
Look at Gary.
Look at old Gary. Oh God.
Right, so yes,
No one's been called Gary for years, and the generation of Garys they might die out.
I know. Yeah, it's a shame about that. I love a
To
Gary,
be
you
fair,
know.
it's a shit name.
I love a Gary. It's such a funny name. I feel like every Gary should be like a plumber or something like that. All right, there, pal. I'm Gary.
Okay. Plumber or a joiner?
Both.
Both.
They could be a hybrid. I do plumbing and I do joining. All right, there, pal. I'm Gary.
Look, we all know that there's only one plumber in this world. My dad.
Does he live in the north of
No,
North Liverpool?
North Liverpool. My dad, John Lennon.
Oh God, we're going off on tangents.
No, yeah.
Resident Evil.
Right, okay. We'll go.
Whoa.
Let me guess. 1996 is the first one.
Yes.
Is it?
The story begins in 1989.
See, right. So
I'm delving back.
okay, because like it is such a convoluted story.
Oh yeah,
Oh, I tried to read it and I'm just like, no.
I have notes.
Okay then.
I knew little bits anyway because I'm a sad Resident Evil fanboy.
I mean, I know the general gist.
Yeah.
But no, I was reading through like the detailed stuff, and there was just like stuff getting pulled from every single game.
Yep.
I'm just like, how they even, they start on one game and then how they just added and added and added and then just fed little things in
I
to,
think
to make
it's.
such a huge backstory. It
I
was,
think it's just like I think Capcom just like making everything super complicated for themselves.
yeah.
That's all I gather because when you look at the, have you ever looked up the history of Resident Evil 4
No.
and about the Hookman and stuff like that?
Oh.
Oh yeah, Resident Evil 4 used to have a Hookman. He was like a ghost. Look how red I am. That's Gary's fault on the screen. Right. We ain't talking about Hookman because there's no Resident Evil 4 in this
Yeah,
discussion.
we'll start with the first one. Okay,
Right.
1989.
So in 1989, there was a
Mhm.
game on the Super Famicom called Sweet Home.
Yes.
It was like a top-down role-playing horror
Mhm.
game.
Yeah.
And you explored the house. It was like Haunted House Simulator. And then every time you went through a door, it would be a black screen with a door and the door
Mhm.
opened. And this was the initial... Resident Evil was a remake of Sweet Home.
Yeah.
basically. I thought
Yeah.
it was just inspired. It was
This
designed as a remake.
they lost they lose the rights to it or something, so they couldn't do it.
Oh, I don't know that.
I think it's something along the lines of they lost the rights,
Yeah.
so that's why they couldn't do it. So then that's when they decided to basically evolve the game.
Yeah. And it did evolve
Mm-hmm.
because it started originally in 1993 as a
Mm-hmm.
SNES game, and I'd imagine it was probably very similar to Sweet Home. They probably
Mm-hmm.
were just making a Western version of that game.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it became a 3D first person game on the PlayStation, and apparently it was supposed to be similar to Doom. And then that got scrapped, and it
Mhm.
became the third person horror game that came out in 1996.
Look at you with dropping facts.
Man's got mad. I don't have any notes. It's all in here. It's all in there.
Oh,
And for people that don't know, because they've been living under a rock or something and don't
yeah.
know what Resident, because I feel like Resident Evil is a game that like people just know. They must have heard of the
It's been
title
around
somewhere.
long enough.
Yeah.
And the fact that there's movies.
And there's movies, millions of games, there's books, there's all kinds.
Yeah, there's animations, there's loads.
It
yeah,
was
it's
it was
a good thing.
it's probably the daddy of horror games. It is the horror game.
Well, it's the first proper sort of
I think it's
survival horror.
yeah, it was like Doom. Doom is what at the time perfected
Mhm.
first person shooters, or like pioneered it, whatever they say.
Yeah, yeah,
Resident Evil was the first one to pioneer
Mhm.
and perfect at the time
Mhm.
survival horror, because
Yep.
you did have Alone in the Dark, which came out, I think that was 93 for the PC. It looks like utter garbage now, but at the time it was supposed to be super scary and creepy, and it had the tank controls and stuff, which I will talk about. Man
Never
has
seen that.
opinions on tank controls. So it was the first I think it was the first like mainstream horror game, wasn't it? That you had to own this horror.
I mean, up to that, I mean, me as a kid, there wasn't any
That's-
scary games.
Splatterhouse,
Splatterhouse. I was thinking that Splatterhouse.
Friday the 13th on the NES.
Well, that wasn't really scary. That was just more of a really
Shite.
hard game. Yeah. What else? There was the Night Trap, Mortal Kombat
Yeah.
would be the only ones really considered adult, gory
Yeah,
games.
mature games aimed
Yeah.
at adults.
Yeah.
But like things like Mortal Kombat and Night Trap weren't designed to scare you, were they?
No,
you had a
no,
bit
they-
of
they
like a
just had
thrill
fun.
ride with Night Trap. It kept you on your
That's-
toes the whole
I think it's
point
just
of it.
more for the fact of the suspense of like when one of the girls got caught, like what were they gonna do? Do you know what I mean? The one with like the drill, it was drilled through her neck, or do you know what I mean? That's the kind of that. Yeah, it was more. It was a cheese fest, wasn't it? Really, but at the
Yeah.
time, your parents were losing the shit over it.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, but actually, Resident Evil itself, the first one, is probably the first proper.
It was the first it was obviously the first proper survival horror game. It had its own thing. It wasn't just a horror game. It was
No,
survival
it's
horror.
survival as well. Yeah.
And that's, for people that don't know, it's all about item management. You can't just get your pistol and then waste 400 rounds on a zombie like you're playing Call of Duty or like you're playing Doom back in the 90s. It's different.
Yeah.
It was different gravy.
Yeah,
was-
you couldn't, nothing could, well, you couldn't treat everyone like a bullet sponge.
No, it was
You had-
it was all
you
about
had to be
ammo
tactical.
conservation and all that. You had to be tactical, like you say. It was. You can't just see a zombie and think, I have to gun him down. I will murder this guy. You had to think, do
Yeah.
I need to murder this guy?
Do you need to actually kill him?
And that-
because
That's,
those 3 bullets could be the difference between, you doing a boss
Yeah.
later down the line.
Yeah, and I think that's something I love about these games. It's like it isn't just your bog standard, go there, shoot everything, kill them all dead, move to the next room.
Yeah.
It's you had to actually think about what you
Yeah.
were doing. If you
Yeah.
had the resources to do what you thought you needed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
I love all the locked doors. You had to find the right key for the doors. Just do puzzles to get certain keys. You
Yep.
play a
Yep.
friggin' piano. We may as well just start talking about the first game. Because,
Yeah, we'll just go straight into the first one.
yeah, it has arguably the greatest introduction to a video game ever.
The FMV.
If you watch the Japanese version, it is grotesque and
Is it?
horrific.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, watch the Japanese
I've never
version.
seen it. I
Oh,
know that I
daddy.
know that the director's cut was supposed to have the intro from the
Yeah.
Japanese, but for some
I
reason
think
they messed it up and they just put the censored one in.
Yeah, I think what they did was they maybe put in like a version that had maybe one extra scene.
Hmm.
Like I remember I only had like the original version when I was a kid, the original
Hmm.
PAL, bog standard Resident Evil,
Hmm.
and the intro shows. We always remember the bit where he's pulling the gun up and then the hand comes with it
The
attached
hand's
to it.
attached to it, yeah.
But it would always stop at like this point,
Yeah.
and then it would just freeze for a few
Mhm.
seconds because obviously it's supposed to keep going up, and you see it
Yeah.
severed.
Yeah.
I think that was as much as it showed on the director's cut, where it would come up from the frame and you'd see it severed.
Oh.
But like the whole bit with the dogs, where the dogs are mauling one of them, they show a lot of blood and viscera and. Bleh.
Lovely.
But it's so cheesy and shite that it's amazing. It is the best. It gets a lot of stick for the voice acting. I love the voice acting. If the voice acting was good, you wouldn't have anything to talk about. It would just
No. Yeah, you're right there. Your voice acting kind of gives it that sort of like 80s B
charm.
movie. It's like
Yeah,
the B,
and
yeah,
it
yeah,
is a Resident Evil is like the ultimate B movie horror
yes,
game.
yeah, yeah.
It's so shit at times that you can't help but love it. Like the first one, especially, I think the first one is the only one that is where the voice acting and that is trash.
Yeah,
It,
yeah, 'cause, yeah. From second onwards, no, it's really
it's
good.
better. It's still not great, but it's
No, but it's
better.
better.
Whereas the first one is next level
I
trash.
I'd probably say that Capcom at the time would probably got someone to translate it that
Mm.
wasn't really fluent in English.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's definitely a thing. I remember that
Yeah,
seeing that
you
somewhere.
getting some of the lines just that were incoherent.
Mm.
You
Yeah.
know, I always remember. I can't remember who it was, but someone had said something, and then at
It's
the end of
probably
the sentence,
Barry. Barry's the main
Barry,
one in
Barry.
that.
Look, we could talk 45 minutes on Barry. So
I heard this.
I heard this.
That's still my favorite like picture ever. That.
I just remember you posting that on all our Resident Evil 5 videos.
I know. Yeah, it's the best. That's the best thing about those videos. God, I might have to link those videos just for people to.
You should have them on the bottom plate.
I know. Yeah, I messed up there. So what notes have I got? I've already said that it pioneered survival horror because it did at the time. Not only the best intro, the best loading screens. Because the loading screens was the door opening
The
animation.
doors, yeah.
It was at the time was a very clever way of hiding a loading screen.
Yeah.
Every other game would have now
It
loading
was
dot.
it also added to the suspense because
It's
you'd press the
horrifying.
button and you'd be sitting there and you'd wait for like 5 seconds for the
Yeah.
animation to go through, and you're just like, the 5 seconds feel like 30 seconds. So it prolongs it, and you're sitting in anticipation, and it just helps to build up the fear.
And there's a couple of they don't capitalize on it in the first one. In the first one, they are all just loading screens. It's just a slow opening of the door, and then you're in the next room. Whereas we'll talk about it when we get to the other games, but other games do capitalize on the suspense in very clever ways. But to me, it genuinely is one of the best methods of a loading screen in a game, because you don't even know that the game's at the time. There was literally no loading screen to Resident Evil games.
And the thing is, you can always hear like when the console's reading the disc.
Yeah.
You hear the but during the loading screens, you don't actually hear
No.
that disc word. So you just it's just loading and it's quiet and it's just suspenseful.
Oh, it's so good. The music, I absolutely love the music in the first one, especially. I think the first one has probably the most horrific music ever in a game where it's so haunting and it makes you so uncomfortable. It's weird because it's like it's good tunes, not like good tunes where I'll stick it in my earphones and listen to it
it's
all
like
day
that
long.
sort of
But
like ethereal sort of
yeah, it's
music
it's weirdly catchy. And what I would end up doing as a little boy in the 90s, I'd end up playing Resident Evil before bed. And I go to bed, and all I can hear in my head is the main hall theme or whatever creepy music. When you get to the cabin in the first one, it's got some creepy ass music in the cabin. Which they reuse in the remake, which is like genius. It's absolute genius. I've mentioned it's a remake. Lead developer Shinji Mikami, who did stuff like Evil Within, which is an amazing game. Not a patch on Resident Evil, but it is an amazing game in its own right.
Wasn't he chosen because he's quite a scaredy cat? Like he's quite easy to scare.
Yeah, there was something about it. He wasn't initially the main boy behind Resident Evil. There was someone else who was asked to lead a team to remake Sweet Home. And then somehow I think Shinji Mikami became the lead producer somehow. He must have had the main idea for
I'm sure it's because like because he's quite, I'm not saying like he's chicken or anything
Pussyo!
But but it was quite easy to scare. So like actually having someone to develop a game that actually is scared of a lot of
who
things.
better?
Who better to design a game that actually would freak him out as he's making it? So
yeah, exactly.
It was a good idea.
And one last little fact: it was released for us in Great Britain. It was released August 1st, 1996, which is the same day as Coolio's birthday. Not 1996 though, August 1st. Rest in peace, Coolio.
I was gonna say you'd be pretty young for Gangster's Paradise.
I know.
Straight out the womb.
God rest his soul.
Oh, rip! I know. God, yeah.
But yeah, Resident Evil 1 is still to this day a classic for me.
I mean, if I'm honest, I only played the smallest amount when it was out. Like one of my best pals had it, and I remember going through the whole intro, running into the mansion, getting through the dining room, and you see the first zombie.
Yep.
And I mean, to
iconic, by the way. This first zombie scene is iconic.
Oh yeah, no, I
That's
know.
frightening. That is legit frightening.
That's literally, and I never played any game, anything like this before. Do you know what I mean? And I used to have nightmares about the guy getting run over in RoboCop.
Oh yeah, that's horrifying. Because he's like melting in acid as well, isn't he?
Yeah. So to me, like that was the height of my sort of like horror, my threshold. And when I was playing this, that I just went way above it. And as soon as that zombie came out and like stood up and turned around and started walking to me, and I'm pressing all the buttons.
Time controls, baby.
Well, that's it. Well, if you think about it, I've gone from like a SNES controller that's and then I've got two extra buttons at the back on me, and I'm pressing everything, and like nothing's happening, and I'm like stuttering backwards and forwards, and I literally had the fear. And I died, and I said to my best pal, "I'll just sit and watch you play." Because like I couldn't deal with the stress.
Well, it is a stressful game though. It's proper stressful. It's proper. It gets your heart pumping when you know, like what I love about the old games, because obviously for people that have played the recent ones, they've altered the way it is completely. So you've had third-person games, and now you're getting first-person games. The fixed camera of the original 3, 0, and Code Veronica are still the best. Because you enter a room and it puts you in the most uncomfortable, awkward angle. And then you're hearing shuffling and groaning. And it's that, what the is in this room with me right now? And then the amount of times as a kid I would play and I would just not move. The character would be stood there because I'm waiting to hear if the shuffling is coming towards me or if I've got to go to it. There's one particular room in the second game, which I'll just quickly mention, where it's like kennels for dogs,
Yes.
And when you walk in, it puts the camera in front of you looking at the door. So
Mm-hmm.
all you can see is Leon or Claire,
Mm-hmm.
whoever you're playing as. And you're just hearing
The
dogs pattering
footsteps.
about,
Yeah.
and you're hearing one crashing into the gate that's holding it back.
Mm-hmm.
And when you don't know what that room is, and you're just hearing that shit, and you're
Yeah.
going, what the fuck is in this room with me? There's dogs growling, there's
Yeah.
running all over the place, there's someone smashing into a gate. I'm not moving in this room. Whatever's
Or you've
smashing
got
into
like
the
a
gate could kill
pistol with about
itself.
20 bullets. You can't.
God. But
You still didn't get the
that's the
tactical.
beauty of those games though, back
Oh
then.
god, yeah. And you had to do the tactical where you'd go to the point where you think the camera's going to change, and you're just pressing up
Hmm.
just slightly
Yeah,
to
just to get that change.
just to get a little bit forward, just so you get the camera change that you're not too far that the enemies can see, but you get the camera change where you can get the different view of the room.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, everything was always tactical in the game. Just
Hmm.
always just the suspense, and you
Yeah.
just get to that point where you've just got to go over that threshold.
Hmm.
So
Oh,
yeah, no, it's
you can't beat those feelings for me for like horror games and stuff.
no.
Right, I don't know what to do if you want to rank each game individually or if we rank the series because there are five
Individually. We
games.
did it with Mario Kart. We'll do it
Yeah, we'll
individually.
do it individually.
Yeah.
And then do we pick one? Because we picked one each, didn't we, to put on
Yes.
the
Yeah.
super awesome leaderboard? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So, do we rank them at the end, or are we ranking each one now, or
Do it at
as
the end.
after we've talked to them? So,
We do it as we talk to them. Yeah.
as we
do it
talk,
as
so
we-
Resident
Okay.
Evil 1, 1996. You've not played it anywhere near as much as me, but what would
No,
you?
no, that's the thing. I think I mean I've played a small amount, and I've probably watched someone playing it probably about 3/4 of the way through,
Hmm.
and I will more likely to give it 8 out of 10 because it's still
Ooh.
for as little I've played it,
Hmm.
I still think it's an absolute. Do you know what I mean? The gold
It's yeah,
standard.
it's
Gold
legendary. It
standard.
is. It is.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, probably the amount of games that like kids these days don't even realize. You know, I say kids, like 16-year-olds and that are playing.
Yeah, but they're kids to us.
Yeah, but what are the what are the current horror games? I'm Dead by Daylight and whatever the current horror games are, probably wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Resident
Wasn't for
Evil.
that. Yeah.
That's what people need to understand about this
Mhm.
first game, especially. Even though it's not the best in the series, it's still the first one.
Yeah.
So I would easily give it a 9 out of 10. And you're gonna get some very biased views from me because this is my favorite series. These are some of my
well, of
favorite
course.
games.
Yeah.
But a 9 out of 10 is probably a bit generous because it is dated now. But going back to 1996, this was a near flawless horror game.
Yeah, but even going back to it now, though, it's like we said.
I still love it to death.
It's like 80s B movie charm.
Yeah.
That,
The actual,
that's what it is. That's
yeah,
why it to
that,
me. That's why it stands better than 2 and 3.
Ooh.
To me,
Ooh, that's
to me,
interesting.
it does. It is. To
Okay.
me, it does.
Okay.
Yeah. 2 and 3
Because-
are better games, but
Yeah.
it is the cheesy campness of 1
Yeah.
to me, which makes it.
I put. Well, I don't know if I could put 1 ahead of 2 or 3. I prefer 1 to 2. Just quickly, I prefer 1 to 2. But growing up, 3 was my favorite.
Yeah, 3 was
Resident Evil
your. I
game.
know 3 was your.
But it's
I know.
my opinions changed as I've got older. But
Mhm.
1 is really high up on my list, and I did the ranking thing, the tier ranking.
Yes,
I'd
seen that.
I'm pretty sure I put all of these in the top
Yeah,
tier.
you did.
Because
all of them.
this is my childhood, so
I'm sitting there watching it whilst I'm in the clothes, the Clemson uniform, and he's like, "Oh yeah, no, he's put that up there." Yeah, not a surprise.
yeah, it's only when I talk about the other ones it gets maybe a bit interesting because who knows, right? Well, we all know where I put 6, but
yeah.
no, 6 is shite. So Resident Evil 1 is 8.5. Yeah,
Yeah,
between the two of us.
yeah.
That's a good start. That's a good
That
start.
is a good. Mm-hmm.
So then we're only journeying
Yeah.
2 years into the future
Mm-hmm.
for probably one of the biggest games of all time. Resident Evil 2.
Huh?
It's
Well,
probably
is it the biggest selling game on the PlayStation? Resident Evil 2.
it's probably one of,
One of, isn't it?
because in '97, this is a fact I didn't say about the first one. In '97, Resident Evil 1 was at the time the top selling PlayStation game of all time. So I can only imagine the sequel, which was met with like rave reviews as well. It was going to sell like hotcakes, wasn't it? So yeah, it came out in 1998. It improved in pretty much every aspect of the first one.
Yeah.
There was just improvements all over the board.
Yeah.
I'd still say it's down to preference, whether I'm a Resident Evil 1 guy. I love the mansion setting. I love that it, even though it's good that Resident Evil 2 improved on the graphics and stuff, and you got more variety of zombies, you did get better enemies with the Lickers, which are like iconic enemies. If you could get far enough to play the second scenario, you got to meet Mr. X for the first time before you got Nemesis in Resident Evil 3.
I never did that.
It took me ages. When it got re-released for the Dreamcast, and me and my cousin got it for that. We were old enough and good enough to get to that point at that stage. Also, there was like a mode in it called Arrange Mode, which lets you start with an infinite machine gun.
I remember
Absolutely trivializes the game. But because we were like, whatever, 11, 12.
Isn't that like they put all the items in different places as well or something?
Yeah, that's the best thing about Resident Evil 1 Director's Cut. There's a mode for saddos like me that know where everything is, where they just randomize it. Even though it's not random, it's just they move it for that mode. They move everything once for that mode. And it just makes it a bit interesting for people like me that know it like the back of my hand.
Slightly harder playthrough.
Yeah.
Because you're an absolute nerd and, you know, back of your hand.
The best thing that they did in the remake of Resident Evil 1, which is probably my favorite game of all time, is they made a mode called True Survivor mode. True Survivor? Where item boxes weren't linked.
Yes.
You had to go to each individual box.
We'll come back to remake though.
That is genius. I love that mode because I'm a sad bastard. Right. Probably the best thing about Resident Evil 2 is the fact that there's basically 4 campaigns to play.
Yeah.
You got on your PlayStation, you got 2 discs. You had Leon on the cover of one. You had Claire on the cover of the other.
Yeah.
On each of those discs was 2 campaigns. You had on the Leon disc, you had Leon with the A scenario. You complete that game. You then got to play as Claire in the B scenario, because at the start of the game they separate. They go the different ways. And then on each disc, you get to experience each character go in that separate path. That was bonkers at the time.
It was, but I think I have to say as well, see the intro with the trucker. Like, to me, that is like as iconic.
That is amazing.
As a Resident Evil thing,
the whole start.
That starting bit is amazing. It is totally amazing, and
it's frightening as well. It's frightening where it's like all dark, and because like they did quite a good recreation in the remake, but it just didn't have the.
I mean, I've got the remakes. I bought them.
They're amazing.
I've got them. I'll get to play them in like 3 years. It's the same with all my games, isn't it? You know?
And you'll enjoy yourself when you get there.
Yeah, because I'm starting with 0. We talked about last time. I started with 0, and I want to make my way through them all. Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how they do it in the remake. But at the time, like that intro and that whole starting bit was just. The
Resident Evil 2 remake is arguably got 5 minutes. Is arguably better than the original. It's probably one of the most polished games I've ever played. It looks incredible.
They've had so much more years experience, and technology's changed so much from when that was from when the original was made. Of course, they're going to be better. Yeah, and
it's so faithful to the second game as well. As someone who's played it enough times to know what everything is, where everything is. It's so faithful, and it's so creepy as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just fun to play the combat, and that it's fun.
Yeah.
Don't know how Capcom managed to do it, but every time they alter the game, they nail it all the time. Whether it's first person, third person, fixed. It's mental.
Yeah.
Yeah, Resident Evil 2 is arguably the best. The best. I think just depends on your taste. I think in terms of if you was just deciding which is actually the best of the original trilogy, Resident Evil 2 probably does win it, probably by a fair bit. It massively improves on the first one, and the third one's
yes.
Third one's technically it is the best one.
Yeah, it is better.
The third one they tweak
don't
it a
improve
bit.
anything in the third one. They don't improve anything enough in the third one to justify it being.
I like the dodge. We'll just go into it quite quickly. They added a dodge thing in the third one, which is good if you know how to do it. I'm 31 now. I've been playing the game for 20 odd years plus. I still don't know how to dodge in that game. It's random. I don't remember how to do it. I don't think I've ever learned how to do it. But if you can do it, it's really cool. So like the odd random time, Nemesis will take a swing at you, and you'll do this awesome dodge around it.
Yeah, you'll do the army roll out the way.
Yeah, which again they added into the third remake, but it's so much easier to do. It's a bit messy, but it's easier to do. But Resident Evil 2, just before we get kicked off, and I'll make a new meeting. What score? Oh, also released April 29th, same day as Willie Nelson and Andre Agassi's birthdays. There we go.
There you go, with old Willie Nelson.
Willie Nelson loves a bit of Resident Evil.
He does. If I'm being honest, I always thought the story for the second one wasn't not necessarily the story, location, the police station.
I like the location, but I much prefer the creepy abandoned mansion.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, the city, as much as it was open and that you would, I just kind of, I think it's more to do with Leon than anything else.
I'm not huge on Leon.
No,
I was a Claire guy because you got a cool crossbow with Claire as well.
Yeah, and just Leon, I just never really sort of clicked with Leon, so I never really kind of gelled with the game.
Yeah.
As much as I think it's an awesome game, I just didn't like Leon.
Ooh. Have you got an issue with people with hair like this? You have to flick it up all the time.
I just think that hairstyle from the 90s
it's very 90s. It's very 90s. Yeah. And then they sort of tweaked it a bit for Resident Evil 4, where it's a bit more extreme.
But still, it's still the fucking same.
But they do. I think he is a much better character in the remake. He's a much more sort of relatable, the rookie first day on the job sort of thing. You feel for him, and
he's just that kind of like heartthrobby kind of character, isn't he? And
it's just the look they gave him, isn't it? It's the look.
Yeah, and I know what they try and go for, like a Leonardo DiCaprio sort of.
Yeah.
Thing,
well,
it
Titanic came out the same year, 1998, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So you know what they were going for.
Yeah. Wouldn't put it past them that they based it on Leo, to be honest. Right, 1 minute-ish. What score do you give Resident Evil 2?
I'm gonna say 7.5.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I can't put it ahead of the first one.
No, neither can I. That's the thing.
But
it technically is the better game, but it's
a matter of preference, is it? It's just taste.
Yeah.
I think we just both pretty much prefer the location of the first one. And even though they improved on the mechanics and stuff for the second one, I like that it's a bit clunky in the first one. I think it works because it makes you feel a bit more helpless.
It's not as suspenseful.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're in an open city. That's what it is. Yeah. You're in the streets.
You don't get that isolated feeling as much.
Yeah, you're not trapped.
I would give it a 8.5. It's marginally just below the first one. So on that note, take a quick BRB break so I can make a new meeting. Burbs. what a palaver. Just to confuse the situation, I'm on the left side, but with the magic of YouTube, I will be able to flip myself back over to the right side with the frame, hopefully. So
that's fine.
It's just been a bit of a mess. Live. Right.
Oh, I was daft.
So, Resident Evil 2, you gave it a 7.5.
Yep.
I gave it an 8. So it's an 8.
Yeah.
Overall, that's pretty good.
Yeah, not as good as the first one.
No, in our personal opinions.
And preference. Yes.
Oh, press the thing.
Because it's our show, so we can decide what we want.
We're the masters of the Gakness retro.
The universe.
Of the universe.
The Gakniverse.
We are basically He-Mans. Right.
Or Highlander.
Yet another short 2 years later, we got Resident Evil 3 Nemesis for the PlayStation, which was not intended to be the third numbered game in the series. It was not.
Ooh,
it was supposed to be the game that we'll talk about after this. But what we got in the year 2000, the year of our Lord Jesus Christ, 2000, we got Resident Evil 3 Nemesis.
The Millennium Bug.
The Millennium Bug. If the world had exploded like everyone thought, then we wouldn't have got Nemesis, but we did.
We did. Thank God.
It's basically just Resident Evil 2, but in the city. It's like they took the first section of Resident Evil 2 and thought, a lot of people like running towards the police station. Let's make a whole game out of it.
Yeah.
I loved it. I still love it, but it's not my favorite anymore. Because I've embraced the other games. I like the isolated, horrible, tight corridors, zombies everywhere. Whereas Resident Evil 3 is very open, which lets it
more
down
open
slightly.
Than 2.
Yeah, they just that's how that was their way of expanding it. Was let's make everywhere bigger and more places and more open and more zombies.
I'm gonna say it's more action piece.
It's a massive action game. It's still creepy. It still has its moments. The first 3 are still the only real creepy Resident Evil games.
Yeah.
Or like the old ones. The old ones are creepy, whereas they've completely just moved into action territory now. Yeah. They brought it back with 7, but then 8 is more action again. It's still good, but it's...
We'll get to that, though.
Yeah, we'll get to that. One day. I have put here that Nemesis is arguably the greatest antagonist of all time. Hi, there's a dog here.
Oh, hello. Hello, little woofer.
Yeah, Bobby loves talking about Resident Evil and scary games.
He loves them
video games. He looks so confused. Get on.
I would... Oh, look at him.
Jesus. Oh, and the lights off now. God, I don't do any of this when when she's doing her yoga stuff. I leave her to it, but when it's me, I'll butt in and be a pain in the ass.
It's because she's threatened by our love.
That's what it is. Yeah, I must ruin it. I don't like this. Anyway, before I was so rudely interrupted.
Yes.
Nemesis, greatest, arguably antagonist of all time.
Yeah, I would say so, because
not necessarily like the design of him. I think he still looks cool.
Oh, I think he looks phenomenal.
He looks cool
at the time.
But I think he's the best antagonist because of the way he is in the game. He stalks you through the game.
Yes, I was gonna say it's the you're playing through and then you don't know when he's gonna come, and then all of a sudden he crashes through a wall, and then just starts chasing you. Yeah. And as much as the
terrifying.
It is. That's that next level of the survival horror, as it were, because you've played the first one, you've played the second one, you kind of know what to expect.
Yeah, you knew in the first 2, like you could go in this room, there will be 2 zombies in there. I will run round them and I will leave the room. They're not coming out of that room. They are tied to that room, and that's their role in the game.
Yep.
This was the one where I believe zombies... I think there's maybe 1 or 2 sections where zombies can crash in. But it is scripted.
Yeah.
It's supposed to happen, but it's the first time they will crash from one room into where you are.
Yep.
but they only properly delved into that. They did it with Nemesis, where he can just crash in random points, which is good. But it was the remake of the first one where you could be in one room and you'd hear the knocking of one door, and then some buggers will come through and you've got extra zombies to deal with. But that was how they sort of evolved it in this game. The Nemesis character. You didn't know when he was going to show up. They let you revisit the police station, which is quite neat at the time.
Yeah.
Although I would kind of consider that lazy development.
Well, they've already had the whole area built, haven't they? So
yeah, so they kind of just made use of it. It was quite good that it was like, I don't think it was before or after Resident Evil 2. I think it's supposed to be at the same time. So it's roughly around the same time. I think it's roughly about the same time, isn't it? Yeah. It's like a few hours apart or something. Which is quite cool, but then it's kind of stupid at the same time, because how do you not happen to run across each other? Yeah. And there's just little bits. There's little bits.
Yeah.
But I loved going back as a kid. I thought it was really cool. They introduced make a choice sequences.
Oh, they did.
So the first time you encounter Nemesis,
yeah,
it's outside the police station. He's just killed Brad.
Run away or battle him, yeah.
And it gives you the option. It goes into negative screen, and it's like heart beating, and it's fight the monster or run into the station or something like that. It says, and those choices do alter the ending of the game.
Yeah,
I don't think a lot of them are very important, but there's one or two where if you make a certain decision, it will alter the game at the end.
I'm sure is it at those points where you get to you see the Nemesis and you say, if you can defeat him, do you not get like? So, no, I'm not saying the rocket launcher, but it's like some
every time
a super gun or something.
Like pretty much every time you encounter him, you get the choice to run away, which is the easy method because he is hard as tits. He is like fighting a boulder. He is literally that rock in Resident Evil 5 that Chris beats the shit out of in the volcano.
Yeah.
You ain't, unless you are packed with ammo. This was, like you said earlier, it's the first one where they delved into action. Like, the item management resource stuff wasn't a huge factor in this game. Because
no, I don't think it wasn't too either, was it really?
It was still, you still had to manage, but you didn't have to manage as much.
Yeah, but they weren't as stingy as they were.
No. And what they give you at the start is a reloading tool or something. And the whole game it's the first one where they introduced gunpowders.
Yeah.
And you could combine certain gunpowders to get certain ammo. So it's like you got to choose what ammo you
wanted.
So it all depended on what guns you used, and you know, different guns affect different enemies in different ways.
Basically making like 1,000 Magnum bullets.
Yeah. And there was like some like cheat or something or whatever you call it, like a hack where you could get like infinite grenade launcher rounds or something like that. But I thought it was cool. And then obviously if you decided to fight the Nemesis and beat him, he would always he'd always drop things in a certain sequence, and it would always be set things, and it would always be like upgrades for your handgun, then an upgrade for your shotgun, upgrade I think the first couple of things he drops is parts for a Desert Eagle.
That's what I'm remembering.
That was all I remembered, because they were the only times I'd actually fight him, because he wasn't overly difficult, and it was easy to sort of get the Desert Eagle. And there's certain sequences where you can, if you pick the right choice, you'll put him down in the cutscene and he'll drop his next item.
So it's like next to canisters or something, you can shoot the canister.
Yeah.
And like damage and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. It was smart. It was smart at the time, to be fair. It was the first Resident Evil game as well to introduce the Mercenaries mode. Even though it's totally different to what Mercenaries became. But it was neat. It was all right. It was just
I'm not gonna lie. I never played.
I played it a couple of times, because it's like when you're a kid and you've got your ending save where you've got the Mercenaries unlocked. it was just cool to play a little extra Resident Evil.
I mean, is it the whole game again, or is it like a set area?
It's a set A to B.
Right.
You get to choose between the mercenaries in the game, the Nikolai and Carlos, and
always remember Nikolai.
The other one, whatever the other one's called, Mikhail. You got to choose between them three.
Yeah.
Hence why it was called the Mercenaries.
Mercenaries.
And it was just, you started at like, say, I can't remember, like you started on the train, I think, and then you worked your way back to the start of the game, and there'd just be random encounters with different enemies, and it was all right, but what Mercenaries became improved on it, and became what Mercenaries is now, where it's just a wave, it's just survival wave shooter thing, whatever you'd call it. But yeah, I love Nemesis. I think because of the Nemesis character, that's why it was my favorite Resident Evil for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
Because he was such a
he
was the main addition. You've got this boss enemy that is stalking you from the start to the finish of the game. Yeah. And each time you encounter him and have a proper fight with him, he will always evolve and become. He'll always have different moves, or he'll become more of a beastie character and get buff, and
he gets stronger with every time you think.
And the end of the game, the final boss fight to me is amazing, where he's basically just like a blob monster, because you have this cool fight with him, you have this cool one-on-one fight with him in this factory. Where the whole point is for you to dodge his attacks so that he swings and hits these like acid containers, and then he gets splurted with acid, and then you're seeing this character literally dissolve in the middle of the fight, and it was amazing. It was so cool, and you'd be fighting this Nemesis with like one limpy arm, and he'd be like limping at you, and it was horrifying, but it was great. And then he gets to a point where he can't go anymore. He just melts.
Melts into nothing. I remember that.
And then he goes into like a big dumpster thing, but then he comes back as like this big blob monster, which they take to the extreme in the remake, and it's all right. They kept the music in, which is the best part of it. The music is amazing.
Music is good, actually.
It's very it's very sort of heroic, and but yeah, that's. I just, apart from the length of it,
it was short, wasn't it?
It's fairly short. It's still, it's not short enough. It's not Spider-Man Miles Morales short. You can get that done in half an hour.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But
true.
it's just that it's not as long as the others.
Yeah.
That's all it is for me.
I probably, to be honest, having the Nemesis. So. Because I mean, I've only played it fully through a couple of times. And the Nemesis come at random points, or are they just set points that he pops? I can't remember.
I think what it is, it's always set points, but it's random whether it happens or not.
Or not, right? Okay.
And that's kind of like, it can happen if you've played through it before. It can happen, but it might not. I don't know. I think it's dependent on choices you make.
Right.
If you make different choices, it might happen.
Playing through it, I mean, don't get me wrong. I played number 2 and 3 when they got ported to the GameCube. So I mean, it's fucking absolute age.
Yeah. So
I don't remember them fully, like the whole thing fully. But I'm just wondering if it was just random.
It's probably a slight aspect of randomness, but certain things will trigger whether.
It was still amazing, the fact that they could do it, and I think that might be attribute why it's so small, is the fact that they have to use so much memory to be able to randomize when he's coming in and such. Yeah. I mean, there's probably a reason why it's so short.
Well, because it wasn't supposed to be the third game. It was supposed to be the spin-off. That's basically, I think, what it was. It was.
Is it Resident Evil 2.5?
Yeah, it's. Hence the subtitle. It was supposed to just be Resident Evil Nemesis.
Nemesis.
And then it's just Jill's escape from Raccoon City before the nuke that detonates it, and and what was supposed to be Resident Evil 3 was Code Veronica, but because of time constraints, they couldn't get Code Veronica out in time because they were making them both at the same time.
Yeah, right. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I think the initially 3 was supposed to be the last sort of PlayStation title, and then Code Veronica was designed for the Dreamcast and was supposed to be the third next generation sort of Resident Evil game.
Okay.
I know it's supposed to be 3, and it just didn't happen.
So, Code Veronica, I'm going to put it out straight away. Never played it.
Okay.
But I know it's hard as balls. There's you get so little ammunition.
It is hard, but it is, in all fairness, fucking amazing.
Is it?
It is an amazing Resident Evil game, and it is so underappreciated. But before that, we'll just do a quick score for Resident Evil 3.
Oh, yes.
I have to still give it 9. Purely because of Nemesis.
So I enjoyed it more than 2. Still prefer 1.
I still say 2 is a better game. But
technically, yeah.
3.
But that's semantics.
I would rather play 3.
Technically a better game, but I do prefer to play 3 to 2. Oh, actually, I think you'll find it.
Leon's got better hair than Nemesis.
Oh, fuck that. Fuck Leon's hair. Quote me on that. I'm going to have that on my grave. Right, so 7.75.
Whoa!
3.
That 3. Well, that requires maths, but I still believe that puts 1 at the top, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you haven't played Code Veronica, it's tough for you to give it a score.
Yeah, I mean, I would literally, by default, because I know how hard it is, and I would just on average, will give it a 6.
Okay.
From what I have, heard other people playing, just the general. See, when you're at school and that, and you could just hear people talking about games, and you're like, no one in my school was able to do it.
I wasn't.
Everyone struggled as a kid to do it. It was that, and you had to do the game over and over and over again.
Yeah, no, there are certain points of that game where if you've not done things right,
because you can soft block yourself as well, can't you?
Massively.
Yeah, if you don't
in a couple of places. I've done it when me and my cousin, because he's the one that got the GameCube, not the GameCube, the Dreamcast.
Yes.
He got the Dreamcast. He got Code Veronica with it. We played that sucker for weeks. Every weekend when he'd either come to my house, we'd go to his house. Wherever we went, the Dreamcast went, and we would be playing Resident Evil Code Veronica, and we barely progressed in it.
Yeah.
But the furthest we got together was there is a tyrant fight in the back of a plane. Back then, that is hard as tits.
Yeah, it's just so small space.
Yeah. When you kind of know what you're doing, which I do now, it's not that hard of a boss. But you need ammo. If you don't have ammo against that boss, you are done.
Yeah.
And it is so easy because when you are on that plane, it's a no turning back zone. You are in the air.
You win that.
So if you've not gathered the essentials for that fight, you are done.
Yeah.
And he does require a bit of pounding before you can actually beat him. Because the idea is you flick a switch and it throws some cargo towards him and it's supposed to push him off.
Right.
So you've got to get to a point that you don't know what it is. You've got to weaken him to a point before you press that switch and flick him off.
Flick him out.
So if you don't have the ammo, you can't. Because I don't think you can keep pulling the lever, hitting him. I don't think that weakened him.
No.
So, and then every time you do that, there's a cooldown.
Yeah.
So you've got to do that. And then you have to run around, not get battered. Because this sucker was big as well. He's a big bugger in the back of a plane.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he was hard to avoid.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of glad I've never played that one because
but the thing is,
too stressful.
If there are people that haven't played it and they do enjoy the original Resident Evil games, it is an absolute must play.
Yeah.
It's the one, like, I am very glad that they are remaking Resident Evil 4. It is one of the best Resident Evil games. It's very good. It should not be getting a remake before Code Veronica.
Code Veronica.
Because
I actually generally
Code
thought
Veronica
they would do Code Veronica.
deserves a remake.
Yeah.
It doesn't get the credit. Like that game, the first half, first 3/4 even, is fucking terrifying. It is a creepy, horrible game. And it's like talking about the loading screens before. This is the one that made you hate those loading screens because you knew when something was going to happen, because it would show the door and it would, like, you'd hear this heart beating that would start coming in, Claire's heart beating, and then it would slowly, like, zoom into the doorknob, and then it would, like, slowly turn the knob, like, ease it to, like, proper slow, and you just think, just open the fucking door, and then it'll just sort of, and it was sort of that moment of, something's coming in this room.
Yeah.
And they did it before, like, there's a fight with a Bandersnatch who's got, like, the stretchy arms. I don't know if you've seen those guys. So every time there's, like, a boss or something coming up, you get these creepy door opening animations and stuff. It was amazing. Didn't mention Resident Evil 2 has the best one. When you go
the windows.
You leave the police station where the helicopter's crashed, and you go down some steps, and then there's, like, a little store room or something. So you approach it from the outside, you go into the storeroom. And the only thing it's got in there is a typewriter and an ink ribbon, I think. So it's just like an out-of-the-way save spot. But there's a door at the end of it. And when you go to open that door, it's the first time, and I think the only time they've ever done it, where you open that door and 2 zombies come out in that loading screen. And it's frightening.
I don't remember that.
That's one of the best. One day I want to do the 10 best moments from Resident Evil, because that's probably top 2, top 3.
Top 9, yeah.
Because, like, when you're just used to seeing, you go to a door, opens up, you go to the next room, and you don't think about it. This moment, it'll proper catch you off guard, because the 2 of the bastards are walking towards you in the loading screen, and then they're just in the room with you. But that's where, like, they improved on. They actually made use of those door opening sequences.
Yeah.
I haven't got much on Code Veronica. I just don't want to spend too much on it. Mentioned the time constraints should have been the third one. I've said, in my opinion, it's one of the scariest ones. It's like, I think probably just because of the time as well. They'd improved the graphics enough where it looked a lot more realistic.
It looked better. I always remember it looked really good.
I think the whole start, where you're locked up in a jail cell, you're released, and you go through a graveyard, obviously, and then all the zombies come up, which is a bit daft now, but the actual sequence is actually quite creepy. And then just the whole area, the whole outside area, and there's a bit with because it's like it's an abandoned prison or something like that.
It's a prison on an island, isn't it?
And it's like there's just all these dead convicts and stuff all over the place, and it's where you're getting, like, zombies bashing through windows and joining you in that room, and there's a bit with the dogs where you got to run around a cabin, but, like, the floors, there's, like, gaps at the bottom of the floor, so the dogs can go under the gaps, and you've got to go around and stuff. There's loads of good little bits like that, which it is frightening.
Yeah.
It gets a bit daft at the end for me. It's where they sort of introduce Neo Wesker. It's the first time
I have seen videos of that where he's, like, running up the walls, and there's a woman with a fireball or something that can do fire or something.
I think she's the sort of the semi-final boss. Because it's one of the weirder games. It's definitely one of the weirder games because it's got the 2 siblings, Alfred and Alessa Ashford or something.
Yes.
And basically,
I remember reading this in the story, and then this is where I was getting
It's weird.
She's like a clone or something or other.
Well, I think they were twins, and then she got captured and experimented on or something. And then because of the trauma, Alfred believes that he is her sometimes. So there is that like personality thing. And like there's times when he's talking to her, but he's talking to himself. There's some weird bits like that. Yeah, at the end it gets a bit daft when you go to Antarctica and stuff, which is another section where you can block yourself if you don't buff yourself up before the Nosferatu fight, who's a bit of a tough bastard.
The Nosferatu?
Yeah, he's a pretty cool looking guy. He's creepy. But he just like sprays poison at you and he's hard as fuck. But I think at that stage you need to have...
what you need.
I think you need like a sniper rifle for that bit, because it introduces like a first person perspective sniper rifle gun.
Okay.
But yeah, you can mess up your game there as well. But it's a good game. Overall, it's a good game. Very creepy. If you give it an average 6, I would give it...
I mean, I'm just basing the 6 on what I've been told. You know, if I play it, when I went to
I think you would give it more than a 6.
Yeah,
it warrants more than a 6.
Not actually ever having played it. You know?
It's very underappreciated, very underrated, but for me, it's not a patch on the first 3. So, I would give it a 7.5.
Okay.
Just to be fair, I want a remake so I can give it more love.
Yeah,
it deserves a remake.
It does deserve it. So it's like the Black Sheep.
Yeah, there's a very scary sequence with an Iron Maiden as well, which I remember was just really creepy. There's just the locations and stuff in that game are so terrifying. There's one room with an enormous like doll just hanging in the middle of it, and like it's a doll that's the size of like a skyscraper. It's massive and it's just creepy. It's weird and creepy, and I love it. And then last but not least, one you can talk about that came out in 2002, Resident Evil 0.
Ooh.
I believe came out the same year as the remake of the first.
Actually came out after the remake.
After the remakes. It's almost like the remake was like they were testing out the technology.
Yeah, because I thought they were being developed at the same time, weren't they?
Probably.
Because I think the remake looks better than 0, even though 0 came out afterwards.
Well, 0 was supposed to be out on the Nintendo 64. I know that much.
I was going to say it was, wasn't it? It was supposed to be on the disc drive.
There is early footage, I think. I think you can find early footage.
They just struggled with it, didn't they? But I'm glad it failed, because I think it coming on the GameCube was...
It's a lovely looking game.
It is a beautiful game.
That and the remake are two of the, like, if you're talking about just of the time, 2002, they are fucking gorgeous looking games.
Considering 6 years difference.
Yeah.
From the first one to this, and just how much.
And that's like that's my big argument with the current crop of consoles now. You are not getting that big step, that big graphical step anymore.
No.
So to me, what's the point of the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox, whatever it's called now, if it still looks like the last batch, just that they can make them smoother? Ooh.
You get dimples and
I don't want that. I want it to look better, like massively noticeably better, which is what these games did. The comparison even between Code Veronica and 0 is massive.
Oh, yes.
Code Veronica is a nice looking game, PlayStation 2 style graphics, but like what you get with 0 and the remake is like the shadows, the darkness, and all the textures and that.
It's the lighting as well. They proper
horrifying.
The lighting, yeah.
But 0's not a patch on the remake, but 0 is a solid enough addition.
Yes, I would agree with that. I like 0 for the fact as you've got the two characters that you can swap between. Which I thought was really good.
It was the main change for that game, wasn't it? The main new addition, which in all fairness, they do always seem to try something.
And then there was the you can put items on the floor.
Yeah, you can actually drop.
You weren't tied to a chest, and go putting everything in your chest and go about. But the only problem with putting the items on the floor is if you went somewhere and you needed an item, you'd have to trail all the way back.
But
so as much as it was good, It's
toughens
a
the game.
double-edged. It's a double-edged sword though as well, because it's good because it's somewhat novel and new and it worked, but at the same time, it actually made your game a little bit harder, and it wasted time.
Yeah, you lose the convenience of just being able to chuck it in the chest, and then you'll be at the next room and you'll get the item from that the next chest you find. It's a daft. I think it's a bit daft. I think they could have figured out a better way.
Why couldn't they have done both?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Give you the option.
Because I can kind of understand it on the train, just because the whole point of the train is that it is quite cooped and cramped,
it's 3 carts.
So where you're gonna fit a friggin' massive chest on that train?
Yeah.
But after the train, it's quite an open game. Then you're in the
your training
the
facility,
big facilities stuff, and I've put that. For me, it's one of the weaker entries in the series, but it's still a good game.
Yeah.
I've just got a few issues with the bosses, for starters. The bosses,
all animals.
They're all overgrown bugs. Every boss is an overgrown bug. And that's Resident Evil. I want some horrific, mutated humanoid monster guy or something.
I think that comes down to though that the big bad guy is an actual, is it the Leech Queen or whatever it was that took over the guy's body. So that in itself is an insect. So it makes sense that his, I'm going to say henchmen, but it would breed or whatever bugs. Giant bugs, because it is a bug.
Also, the first one you fight, the Scorpion on the train, is the biggest pussyo in the world. Did you use guns against him?
I'm not gonna lie. See, the first time I played it, I couldn't get past him for weeks.
Honest to God,
dying on him.
I will blow your mind now if you've never done this against him.
Because I'm gonna replay it again.
Okay, when you replay it, remember this.
Give me hints and tips.
Remember this moment.
Go on then.
Knife.
You can knife it. Yes. Even when he comes in with its claws.
It's a pussyo.
Oh,
honest to God. You let him come close. Little jab with a knife. He goes flying back, screeching. Run forward. Jab him with a knife. I think he hit him about 8, 9, 10 times. He goes down.
Oh, God.
You don't need to spend any ammo on that guy. That's like my issue. It's like, I don't mind a big giant scorpion. Fucking hell, if that came right in front of me now, I would cack myself.
Shit your pants. Yeah.
But it's just because there's always easy ways around them. I think all the bosses are quite.
The one with me is like the giant millipede, where
that was quite cool.
It was cool, but I always found it really hard. Yeah, but then it's like it's hard enough. Resident Evil shooting in the tank controls. It's hard enough as it is. Trying to shoot a slow moving zombie sometimes. So actually trying to shoot like an actual millipede that's actually fucking Usain Bolting around the little reservoir room bed. Do you know what I mean? That was hard. I always found that hard.
I will revisit it probably fairly soon in the near. I'll probably play it next year at some point because I haven't played it for a while. So it's not like I dislike the game. I know people think like, oh, he's saying certain negative things. He must hate this game. No,
every game has criticisms.
It's low in the list of my favorite franchise. It's just there are better games than this. Is it?
And there is.
Is it worse than Resident Evil 6? Fucking hell no. Resident Evil 6 is the doggy doo-doo of this franchise. It is shocking. Jesus. We have to talk about that someday. It's fucking horrendous.
We are at some point.
We need to play it again just to... Because I did it. When did it?
I've got it.
I think towards the end of the PlayStation 4.
We did it. We played it together.
We did. We didn't get that far into it.
We got into the caves.
Yeah.
And then the video corrupted for you or something, and we were just like, we're not playing that fucking segment ever again.
Yeah, that's it.
Like,
so there is some evidence of us playing it.
Yeah. I think we got to like the titty woman.
Yeah, Deborah.
Deborah
Titties.
Titties, as you kept calling us.
Yeah. Well, let's just do a quick, and then we'll just have a quick chat about Resident Evil 6 because it's funny.
Okay.
Resident Evil 0, a score for Resident Evil 0.
So I'm not gonna lie, right? I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like,
It's a good game.
And it is a good game. So, and this is why I've bought all these ones again. It's because I actually wanted to go back and play Zero because I've been hankering for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And so I just bit the bullet and bought them all. So, I mean, I'm 7.5. I would. I did enjoy it.
It's solid. It's solid. I would actually also say that the train sequence at the start is one of my favorite parts of the series. I love that train.
Yeah. And it was such a good idea.
Yeah. And it's why didn't they even consider that at any point before? Because what's more like, there's nowhere to go. The train's moving. It's cramped up.
Yeah.
You've got so many different little carts or whatever they're called to wander around. It was genius. And it was so creepy.
Yeah.
But that's also its own like downfall in a way as well, because I don't think the rest of the game competes with the train. I don't mind the training facility. The monkeys can go get fucked.
Oh, don't start with them.
Don't like the monkeys.
Oh, no.
And they've got, to be fair, they've got a cool name, and I've forgotten what they're called. I'm pretty sure
they're
Eliminators.
Eliminators.
I think they're called the Eliminators. That's quite
Eliminators.
Cool. They're basically just monkeys.
They're literally they're just midget lickers.
Yeah.
That's what they are.
And they give you about 5 in a room.
And they're pricks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
actually, what I always remember is that every time, is it the hunters? Were they hunters in there?
There's like
Zero.
I was thinking of 3 then. What they do, there's like frog hunters in 3. The hunter gammas.
Yeah.
3. I can't remember.
I'm trying to think. I'm pretty sure there's something in 0
there'll be some form.
They always come in 2s, and if they get you, then they can swipe you, and they basically like they no, I'm saying they soft block you, but like they hit you, you stumble, and then the other one hits you, and it's like you're just stuck, and literally they just do that until you die.
All right.
And I remember there was always bits in the game like that, and it happens a couple of times. And that was always one of the things that really pissed me off with it as well. Actually, I mean, it's not the hardest of them, but there are bits in it that are infuriating.
Yeah, it's quite. I struggled when I had the GameCube. My mum and dad did get me Resident Evil 0, and I think it was fairly new, but I was also a pussyo at the time. It was when I wasn't keen on horror. Like, I'd played the original 3 when I was much younger, a fair bit younger, and I didn't know any better. But at this point, I was a bit of a girl's blouse. I wasn't keen on horror because I know I'd go to bed thinking of these things and I won't be able to go to sleep.
In nightmares, yeah.
So I remember getting to a certain point and I happily gave up. I was like, can't go any further. Never mind, I'll go play Sonic the Hedgehog or something. But when I replayed it, when I got the Wii, it must have been when I got the Wii and they re-released it on the Wii. Same with the remake. That's when I played Remake for the first time on the Wii. And I loved them both. They're both amazing. But it's just like at this stage now, because I've played every game multiple times, I'm just much more critical of something like 0, where it's just not up to par of
it's just below par.
It's a very suitable prequel to the first one. That's why it's called 0. It's Rebecca's story leading up to the first one.
Yeah. Which there's one thing with that as well. It's like Rebecca goes through a whole game defeating zombies and tyrants, and the tyrant in that, and she gets through all of that, and then in the actual main game, number 1, she's like she's a scaredy cat again.
Yeah, she's pointless.
And I know, and I know it's obviously a product of that first game coming out first, but you would have thought that Capcom would have written it slightly different.
Yeah, they could have, because she's, in all fairness to her, she's quite badass in the game from start to finish. She's not When she goes
No,
on that
that's the
train,
thing.
she's very, she's straight
Yeah,
with a gun,
yeah.
no messing.
But her transition from that game to the actual Resident Evil game, like she goes from
It's
this
like in
badass
reverse.
to this like little rookie girl again.
Yeah,
Do you know what
yeah.
I mean? And everyone's like, "It's okay, Rebecca.
Yeah.
You know,
Whereas they could,
we'll babysit you."
Yeah.
And, they did it. They did it really good, and they gave her the story that she needed. But then at the same time, they didn't really write that bit in between.
No, yeah.
Well, they could have written it that she got injured, which is why she couldn't have done the stuff in the main game.
Yeah,
could have done something like that, but yeah, that's one little the gripe as well, actually.
Yeah, well, they could have easily just made Billy the main character.
Yeah,
they could have made you start the game where he's an escaped convict or something, isn't he? Because he's got cuffs on.
Yeah.
So you could have had just been him from the start, run onto the train, and then there's something going on the train. Stars, Bravo team, or whatever the Alpha team, Bravo team. I can't remember.
Bravo team, aren't they?
Stars, Alpha.
Bravo.
I'm trying to replay the first.
Second.
I'm trying to replay the intro of the first game in my head. Bravo.
I know it's because she's Bravo team.
Yeah, it must be Bravo.
Because Thingy's Alpha.
So they could have had it where you're seeing it from the Billy's point of view, where you're seeing Bravo team making their way onto the train, and then he bumps into Rebecca. She can be a bit of a scaredy cat, and then it would be a good sort of evolution of her starting to toughen up towards the end of the game. And
they did nothing with Billy either, did they?
No, he just sort of vanishes.
Apart from that 3-minute cutscene of where he's in the army and this guy tells him to kill the villagers,
quite an
and he says
character. No. Yeah.
Could have fleshed him out loads.
Yeah, and they've done it, not even in side games. They don't bring him back into. He wasn't in the Mercenaries 3D on the 3DS. No. He's not been in. He's not in that RE-verse. That's actually all right,
Is it?
The multiplayer shooter, it's all right.
Right.
I'm quite critical of all of those, Umbrella Corp, dog shit, and
Umbrella Chronicles and that. Yeah.
Operation Raccoon City is okay. It's a fun enough game, but it's not great. But yeah, RE-verse. I think if you own Village, you get that for free. I think, but it's PS4 only. It doesn't have a PS5 version. I don't know why. They've messed up with that.
You still download it on the PS5 though, can't you?
Oh yeah, you play it on the PS5, but it's just it's not as the fidelity isn't as good as whatever.
But yeah, they did Billy. They did Billy dirty, didn't they? Because that's it. Once he fell over that fence, and that was him.
Yeah, a bit of a waste of a character, to be honest. I quite like Billy. I'd rather Billy than Leon.
Yes, because he's got the tattoo on his arm.
He's got a pretty ghetto tattoo, hasn't
he?
Yeah. I would probably I'd give it a 7 out of 10. Solid enough. I enjoyed it. Yeah. I'm actually quite tempted to, while we were talking about it then, because I've streamed a little bit of Resident Evil 4, but I've not put any on YouTube. Not got around to it because I was still finishing Silent Hill at the time. I'm quite tempted to sort of put that on the back burner and maybe do Resident Evil 0.
Go through them all.
Because it's more of a Resident Evil game as well.
Yeah.
It's I love 4, but it doesn't give me that Resident Evil scratch that I need on that itch.
Yeah, it doesn't get rid of your itch as such.
Yeah, it's at least for 0. I haven't played it for a few years, and it's the tank controls. Tank controls. This is what I wanted to say earlier. Tank controls is top tier movement controls in video games.
I think it adds so much. I think it adds so much to that whole suspense of the games.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
it makes situations a little bit harder.
Yeah, it does make things harder. Yeah, if something happens and you need to run or get away, you've got that half second in your brain to remember the controls of your tank movement, Whereas obviously with the remakes, in this Resident Evil 0 remake, they've given it up-to-date controls.
Yeah,
which is fine.
It's awful. It looks so stupid.
I know, but it's fine. I that's the way I played it, and there was some times where I was trying to run, and when the camera changes I'm pressing up to go, and then the camera changes, and then they run back,
It's like that's like the
The-
Devil May Cry God of War thing, that
yeah,
where you'd
and
move,
it's-
it would transition to a different camera, and then your character would go. "Rip."
yeah, yeah.
So I
So I
hate
mean, it's
that.
not
I
it's
hate
not the greatest, but I mean, yeah, your tank controls. That was
that. For me,
that was the hardest thing for me for the most part. Was that when I first played it, was the tank controls,
Yeah.
just getting
And
my head around.
that's what a lot of people struggle with, and probably probably I did when I was a kid, but because my brain is just so used to it, it's like that is the definitive way to move a character in a video game for me.
After a while, yeah,
I
it's
I
become
love
second
it.
nature.
Yeah, and that's why I'm still like clamoring for a modern day Resident Evil
Alexa.
like that.
Stop.
Alexa, keep singing. No, not you.
Get,
Oh God, she's gonna talk now.
take Flynn for his night week. She's gonna
Sing
go
Christmas
again.
songs.
Alexa, Weast.
Alexa,
Shut up.
stop.
It's a phantom we.
Oh. I forgot what I was saying now. It's basically, yeah, tank controls.
Yeah, no, they
I
do.
love
They
it.
do. They added like an absolute
Yeah.
an extra
yeah,
layer
that-
suspense.
Yeah, that's why I want a modern day 2022, almost 2023, old school Resident Evil game. Because if Remake and Zero looked as good as they did in 2002, because it's all still like pre-rendered
Yeah,
backdrops and stuff.
yeah,
Imagine
yeah.
what those games could look like
Could be
now.
like now.
And that would be the next step.
Yeah,
PS5.
that is your next evolutionary step. Yeah,
Because like
Yeah.
I'm forever having arguments with Arth at work, because he's like, we're both playing the new God of War, and it
Yeah.
looks amazing, but
Mhm.
like I keep saying to him, the problem is it still looks like the last God of War. I'm
Yeah.
on the PS5 now. It's got to look like the next
there's
generation.
got to be yeah,
It
yeah.
not It's bigger. It's more vast, but
Mhm.
like the level of detail on the graphics doesn't look.
That's because it's coming out on the PS4, though, isn't it? So they've got
That's the big issue, and that's what I keep saying.
they've got to tie. They've got to keep it with it. Yeah.
There's still only one. We'll end this soon because we can easily just waffle on.
Transition on something else. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's still only one game that
Mm-hmm.
I've played that I still consider a PS5 experience. One. Demon Souls.
Demon Souls. Yeah.
Because it only came out on the PS5, it's designed for the console.
Yeah.
Everything
Yeah.
else is still backtracked to the PS4,
Right.
and it just
Mhm.
has little niggles to them.
Mhm.
Even Elden Ring, which came out 2 years after Demon Souls, year and a half,
Mhm.
feels like a PS4 game, just that it's
Yeah.
really vast and open. So it's good, but there's something magical about Demon Souls. It feels like a next generation game.
Mhm.
And on that Demon Souls mention, that's the end of Resident Evil.
Oh, I mean, are we doing the remake though?
We can
Are we
talk about the
discussing that?
remake.
Quick
I mean,
remake. All I'm gonna
it-
say is, see them fucking zombies that burn and
The
become
Crimson
fucking.
Heads
Oh my.
are the
fuck.
greatest enemies in any video game. I fucking hate them and I love them.
My GameCube I bought from America, and when this came out, I was like, I am buying this no matter the cost. And I'd gone to Forbidden Planet, and it was £90
Ooshed.
from an import from America, because obviously I can only play American games, so £90.
Yeah.
And I was like, take my money. And I played it, and I got so far, and I wasn't doing well, and I was just, I played the two ports of 2 and 3, and it's a lot. They were a lot easier than this. This remake was like number one, but on steroids. You know,
It's the
And-
perfect sort of, because it's not. It is a remake, but it's like a reimagining as well.
it's an
They've
update. It's
expanded on the
it's
first
a
one.
remaster,
Yeah.
as such. Yeah. And I just remember I couldn't get past certain points, and I actually had to go. And I'm sure I was in college, to college or school, I can't remember. But I remember having to print out the guide from like GameFAQs
Yeah.
to literally help me, and I'd got
I
like
used to have to do
staple
that.
and the things. Yeah, and I actually had to go and read the sheet before going into every room to know what I was doing, to know who I had to kill.
Yeah.
And then I just remember I'd got into them bots, and then them Crimson guy, fuck me.
Crimson Heads are the best
Yeah.
enemies because they are horrifying as well.
Yes. And the fact that they follow you into the other rooms and just smash through the door, like, holy shit.
And again, it is like a random thing because it's if you don't burn the corpses or if you don't decapitate them, then fuckers can get up at any point. And like you can see when you play it now, you can see when they've changed.
Yes.
Like it's quite good. The bodies will always be there, but like they can sometimes reposition slightly. And you can see the color change, and they've got massive ass like fingernails.
Yeah.
But like when I first played it on the Wii, because like the clarity wasn't great, it was quite grainy, and it actually worked with the game. You couldn't always notice if they sort of transformed, and like the fact that it can be any zombie that you've put down but not finished.
Yeah.
And there's two set Crimson Heads. There's one quite early on that you see this body from the start that you've not even killed, he's just always been there, and then you're just going to and from this corridor quite a few times, and there's one door that's locked that you've got to get through, but to get to that door you got to run past this guy, and it's every time as you reach that door and you're about to press the button, this bastard gets up right behind you and starts running. It is amazing. I love it. It is such a good like little moment. It's not even like a proper jump scare moment. It's just like it's just keeping you on your toes that this is a thing in this game. These guys will get back up.
Yeah. I don't ever think I felt as much tension in any other game. From playing Remake. Like I literally was on edge.
Yeah. Well,
whole time.
I've said it earlier, and it probably is. This is my favorite game.
I'm not gonna lie. Ever. I think it is gonna be the highest scoring one.
Oh, easily.
Fair, because even
I ain't beating around the bush. This is 10 from me.
Oh, I was gonna put like 9. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair enough. This is 10. I'm not a big guy on perfection. I don't think you can perfect anything, but this is as fucking close as you can get.
I know there's a couple of games.
Yeah, but I still think there's always room for improvement everywhere.
Yeah.
That's why I don't like giving perfect scores, but just because this is my favorite game, I have to give it a 10.
Yeah.
And
that's justifiable. It is 100% justifiable.
Because like we've not even like delved into like puzzles. The whole point of what's famous in Resident Evil is puzzles.
They're
stupid. They make no sense, but it's part of the game. It's what makes it a game.
Why in a house would a door be locked where you have to move statues
move
to reflect
statue
light?
Onto a plate and do this?
Yeah. I know.
It's
I know.
It
never makes sense. Yeah. Why would a police station have like keys that are like based on like fucking playing cars and shit like that? It doesn't make any sense.
No, exactly.
And to be honest, I think you just go with it, don't you? Because you have to.
Yeah,
you can't sit there with your what's your head on because it's a game about zombies after all.
Yeah, but you don't really get stuff like that anymore. They're too busy these days trying to make everything too realistic, very gritty, and they kind of do it in 7 and 8 where they try and make it a bit more realistic with the puzzles and stuff, which is fine. But I like the obscure, stupid, like.
Yeah.
The first one where you have to concoct a formula to kill a plant with poison.
Yes.
That was my
Plant 42 or whatever it was.
Yeah, Plant 42, and that was my instance of
how daft of an enemy is Plant 42.
He's stupid.
It's stupid.
Yeah. But I tell you what, if you forget, I think you have to. I think you have to do it in the original one. I think you have to concoct a formula and stick it on the plant before you get to fight him.
Yeah.
In Remake, you can forget to do it. This dum-dum last time he played it forgot to do that. And when you fight him, he is hard as tits.
It's hard.
Because
it's just the vines that it whips around.
Yeah. There's and again, because of tank controls and stuff, it's hard to get away from him, and you get whipped once, he drops poison on you, you're dead like that.
You're dead. Yeah.
Even as big, tough, buff Chris Redfield, he goes down.
He didn't have them big buff muscles then, though. Remember, so
he does. If you play it on the PS4 or the PS5, you get buff Chris.
You get buff Chris.
Who is the best and most superior Chris? I love RE5 Chris, but you know we have a massive love for RE5, which we'll talk about soon.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I've got no notes on Resident Evil remake, but I don't think I need it.
You don't need any because it is the standout.
It's, you know, if we're picking, I mean, if I'm picking a game, it's to go on the slag. It's remake.
Yeah, it is.
But
it is.
I feel like we should just put it on by default because we've pretty much given it 9.5.
I was gonna, to be honest, before we even discussed this, I knew this was going to be this game was going to be on the board for us.
It is the superior. Fuck your Resident Evil 4. It's amazing. It's not remake.
Yeah.
Get fucked with the remake of Resident Evil 2. It's amazing. It's not remake.
Not
Resident
remake.
Evil 7 is a very good reimagining of Resident Evil. It's not remake. Remake is the superior Resident Evil.
Yeah. And I agree with that. I do totally agree.
Simple.
Yeah.
I wish.
Thank you. Welcome to our TED Talk for an hour.
Yeah. I wish we could have just talked about remake the whole time, to be honest.
Well, no, but you have to build up to it. It's the crescendo, isn't it? Because you have to have those games to come out for us to get to that point of remake, you know. And everything, like you say, everything builds on every game, you know, and the remake is a culmination.
Yeah.
Of everything that came before it.
And they always seem to find the right thing to add to these games. You know, your nemesis for Resident Evil 3, who is actually based on the T1000 from T2. I read that earlier. He's the inspiration. That's pretty amazing.
That is pretty.
And you can see it, and you can see it when you know.
When you actually think about it, it is. Yeah.
He's the T1000.
Yeah.
He's the better version of the T1000. Because if anything, the only problem I have with the T1000, he looks a bit gimpy. You know, when you used to Arnold Schwarzenegger in the first one, the superior Terminator, by the way. Save that for another day. But when the Terminator in the first one is Arnold Schwarzenegger, and then the Terminator in the second one is this scrawny little fella.
Yeah.
I don't even remember his name.
Well, it's because he was designed. Well, we're talking about Terminator.
One day we'll do a sub show one day, which is about like classic films and stuff, as opposed to classic games. I got to work on that though. But yeah, so you got the T1000 in Resident Evil 3, and then remake you get the Crimson Heads and stuff like that, and they always added those little things, and they always seem to just be the right additions. They never messed up.
Yeah, no. And that's it, and then they get to 6. Well,
we'll save that for another day. That's a show on its own, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
I think to be honest, we could probably talk 5 on its own, 6 on its own.
Yeah, but we'll do 4, 5, 6 as one video,
as a special.
7 and 8. Yeah, we'll do as a special.
We'll get around to it.
Yeah,
that'll
be a big one.
Yeah, we won't do it straight away.
No. We'll give the viewers some small tidbits.
Yeah, 4's amazing, 5 is phenomenal, 6 is shite.
I'm not a fan of 4.
Ooh!
Just dropping that out right
When was the last time you played it though?
The Wii. When it came out on the Wii.
Oh, that's the superior version as well. It's not great now.
I think it just comes down to Leon again, though.
Yeah, Leon's not amazing.
Yeah, I just think it's bland.
Ooh,
We
have to talk about this. We'll do one more where we talk about something random, 1 or 2 more.
All right, we'll do a couple of little ones, and then we'll come back.
I need to talk about this now because I was in the sort of camp of I still say Resident Evil 4 is overrated. Preview. Resident Evil 4 is massively overrated, but it's still phenomenal for me. Which is why I wanted to play it again. I've streamed it a couple of times, but I'm not wanting to keep playing it. I don't know why, because I do like it, but I'm looking forward to the remake though.
But it's bland.
It's a bit.
That's why you don't want to. That's why you don't want to play it. It's bland.
Stop it! It's not bland. It's a little bit.
It is bland. It's bland.
It could be. It ain't no remake.
No, it isn't exactly. Yeah, but it is bland. But anyway.
Yeah.
On that note.
Resident Evil 5 is phenomenal, though. We love Resident Evil 5. It's so good.
I know, and everyone hates it. I love
How
it.
can you hate that game? It's so good.
So funny.
Right, on that note, otherwise we'll never ever leave.
I know. Thank you for watching.
Thanks, people, for our Resident Evil Fest, where
Tell us how wrong we are.
if you say anything bad about the remake, don't ever come. You're never welcome back to this channel ever again. It's the greatest game ever.
Yeah.
Right, cheers, pal. We
Right.
shall do this again very soon.
Latest mashed potatoes.
Ta-da! Bye.